Welcome back to the Andrew Finney Show, where we help you real estate. I'm your host, Andrew Finney, with King Realty Group here in Las Vegas, Nevada. I hope that everyone enjoyed a terrific holiday season and are enjoying a wonderful start to 2019. So a couple of quick ground rules. Number one is that you're in a safe place, so please be respectful and polite. And the second is that there is no such thing as a stupid question. So if you're thinking it, please feel free to ask it. And what we'll do is we'll go over a book of the week that I listened to recently that I think that you might enjoy. We'll bring up a question that one of our subscribers raised in the comment section that was extremely good, and I'd like to clarify a few points on it. And then we'll, of course, respond to the last 7 days of comments on the channel and any questions that come up during the live stream itself. So the book of the week is going to be Dare to Lead by Brene Brown. Again, Dare to Lead by Brene Brown. Now, I'm actually a very big Audible fanatic. I love to listen to books whenever I'm driving around. It helps cut out the dead time, you know, as opposed to listening to music or adverts. I like to educate myself and improve myself to become even better, to provide even better service to the families that I have the chance to represent here in Las Vegas, Nevada. That being said, one of the key takeaways of Brene Brown's book, Dare to Lead, is that she was talking about vulnerability and the power of vulnerability in leadership. And it's not something like we want to make ourselves vulnerable to or susceptible to people's judgment or their criticism, but that there's a certain humility that comes along with it, and there's a certain way that we as leaders can learn from it. And like she says in her book, let's face it, I mean, it's really sucks sometimes to put yourself out there and make yourself vulnerable, and I can completely agree with that for so many different reasons, because it's sometimes how I feel whenever I make these YouTube videos, as I give my all into these videos to the very best of my skill, to the very best of my talent at the time. And sometimes, you know, people love it and sometimes they don't love it so much, or there's kind of a mixed bag, right? So I'm like, you know, at the end of the day, I'm doing the best I can, and I don't look to compete with anybody except for myself. That way I can always stay focused on making myself the best person I could possibly be. And of course, I make these videos out of a passion to simply help you make sense of real estate and become more well informed when you're looking at real estate at large. And of course, I tend to be an internal optimist, so I like to be positive, and hopefully the reason that somebody smiles today. And if that's the case, then we've done a good job for the day, and by virtue of making someone else smile, guess what? They're probably gonna make someone else smile too. So it catches on. Positivity is just an amazing thing. So the book of the week that you might want to listen to, and it's so powerful. It goes far beyond the vulnerability and everything that she's talking about. She's talking about looking at things through different perceptions, and in real estate, that's critical whenever we're talking about looking through things from a different perspective. Sometimes somebody could say the exact same thing, or two separate people could say the exact same thing, and our perception of what one said and how they said it is so much different than the way that they might have meant it. So by slowing down and not looking at it as, did they just try to jade me, or did they just attack me, or what's going on here, you can get to the root cause and have effective communication. So Dare to Lead by Dr. Brene Brown is this book of the week, and if it's something that you wish to listen to, you can find it on Audible or on Amazon, and I hope that it's as powerful for you as it was for me. So I saw a couple of comments come in. Matt Nelson, thank you so much. He says, what's up, Andrew? Happy New Year. Matt Nelson, what's up, my friend? And Happy New Year to you as well. Thank you for picking up on the new video yesterday, the Housing Market Predictions 2019. I did a lot of research on that video, and I really am hoping that video could go super viral to help as many people as possible. Everything that I shared in that was very well researched and backed up with the stats and with places that people could go to conduct their own independent research and make their own conclusion. I mean, I like to provide the facts of the situation so people can just do what they want to do with getting things done. So anyways, Darren Carter, Happy New Year, Andrew. Happy New Year, Darren. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you being here today. Matt Nelson, thank you. Just at Work, new video was great. Thank you so much, Matt. I think you're going to love the other ones that come up. I did have some technical difficulty in shooting that one. It may or may not have been noticeable to you, but there was some audio issues that I was having with my microphone, and I didn't catch it until it was too late. And I didn't have a chance to reshoot it and have it re-edited before taking it out. So we just put out what we had at our very best, and keep our fingers crossed that it was helping people out there. So anyways, the newer videos coming out starting tomorrow, obviously with the home selling series, home ownership series on Friday, is going to be setting the tempo for what to expect from this channel going into 2019. We'll essentially have 4 videos a week, with Tuesdays being home buying, Wednesdays being live just like now, and then we'll have Thursdays with home selling, and we'll have Fridays with home owning. Denise Belt, chain reaction, I love it. I wish you so much success. Also, so glad to hear you're an Audible listener too. Well, Denise, thank you for being here. Yes, Audible is like absolutely my favorite. I have like a huge library of books in my Audible library. It's like over 400 right now. And I got to be honest with you, I've listened to probably at least 387 of them. And normally I listen to my books 3 or more times before moving on to the next, just to try to get all the goodness out of it as possible. So super excited that you're an Audible fanatic as well, and hope that you pick up on Dare to Lead by Brene Brown. I think you'll love it, Denise. Matt Nelson, I didn't notice. I usually only listen, not watch. So if the audio didn't match up to the video, I wouldn't notice because of being at work. Hey, Matt, that's a great point. And that's one of the reasons I was concerned about the audio, was because it could have transitioned. It wasn't that my mouth was out of sync with the audio. That's not the kind of glitch it was. It was one where later in the video, it kind of phased out a little bit, and it sounded like I was talking in a tunnel as opposed to being as loud as it should have been or being consistent throughout the entire video. It was a very small thing, and it's something that nobody has commented on yet on the video, and that video has just cracked 1.2 thousand views in just over its first 24-hour run. So that's pretty cool. So being that nobody's really commenting on it, I think that it might just be noticeable to me because I'm the creator of the video, and I kind of pick apart and probably overanalyze my videos a little bit just to make sure that I'm giving my absolute best. Because Matt, you've been with me for a while now. Darren's been with me for a while now. And, you know, I just do the best that I can. So I'm always analyzing and assessing the videos to make them as powerful and as powerful and strong as possible for people. Anyways, let's go ahead. Better to overanalyze than underanalyze. Yeah, that's true. As long as we don't commit analysis paralysis, Matt. That's a great point. But let's not commit analysis paralysis in the process so that we overthink things so much that it's like, oh my God, I can't do it. I can't do it because I am like, oh my goodness. Yeah, let's not commit analysis paralysis. Let's go ahead and start off with the comments that came in over the past week, or excuse me, let me go back to that person that had written a comment last week. They were watching the video, 9 Questions Ask Your Mortgage Lender, and Al May had said, can I get a mortgage with a 630 credit score, and how much down do I need? And the reason that that question stuck out of my mind's eye as something that I wanted to highlight early on in this video is twofold. Number one, when we're talking about a credit score is only one aspect of getting a home loan. So that aspect of the credit score is, can you qualify for a home loan based upon your credit worthiness, and what kind of programs can you qualify for moving forward? So that's what is really, really important to note. A credit score is not going to determine necessarily how much down that you need to make. It really depends on what kind of program that you're using. There's down payment assistance programs, there's home as possible programs, there's conventional loan programs, there's loans as low as 1%, 3.5%, 5%, and it's the credit score that determines how many different loan options you're going to have based upon the different loan types available. So it's really important to take note of that the credit score is only one component of a pre-approval. So when Al's asking me how much do they need down, I don't know. The best thing for Al to do is to reach out to a local loan officer and have that conversation with them, because it's only one aspect. Now, what I can say is that at a credit score of 630, you're doing great, and it's really going to work out well for you that you're going to be able to qualify for different loan programs depending on what your needs are. So Al, I just really wanted to share that with you and share it with everyone else up front, because whenever you're getting a home loan, what a loan officer is doing is they're looking at your income, your assets, and your credit. They're looking at everything combined. So the credit score is just one component. So if you go back into like the 2019 episode yesterday, I really laid down a massive education in that video. Whenever I watched it back to myself before I released it, I was, oh my God, I hope I didn't go too deep on some of this stuff, because I was going in the loan to value ratios, debt to income ratios, mortgage interest rates, you know, essentially laying the grounds for why the 7 predictions that I had shared are there. and with identifying the factors that influence the real estate market and also the indicators to watch. So anybody that really sits down and watches that video will know what to expect from any real estate market into the future, because the things that I mentioned underneath the factors and the indicators are the things that you're always going to watch. So when people ask me, Andrew, how's the market? You know, is it going to crash? Is it going to explode? And I always share with them, well, based upon the factors and the indicators, no, it doesn't look like the market's going to crash. That being said, there's always the unpredictable variable. And in this case, the current presidential administration is that unknown variable. It's a little bit geopolitically in flux and some problems going on there, and none of us can predict that. But if you look at the rest of the indicators and the factors, no, the indicators and the numbers aren't there for that. That being said, you know, we'll see how this year plays out. I'm definitely keeping my fingers crossed we move into that stabilized market I was talking about. And if you haven't seen it yet, please go back and check it out and let me know how I did on it and share your thoughts about that video. Robert Taylor, I see that you gave $25. Thank you so much for your donation. Very, very, very much appreciated, and Happy New Year to you as well. Robert says, haven't been able to tune in for a while, but thanks for all the great advice you've been giving us in the past. Keep up the great work. Thank you, Robert. I just want you to know I really, really appreciate you, and all of these donations go to making these videos even better. And I hope that the videos that you're going to be seeing coming out this year are really going to be right up the alley for you, and everyone else watching. I worked extremely, extremely hard on them, and I'm just like really beyond myself excited, because I know for a fact, at least ways within myself, these are the best videos I have ever made yet. So I'm really, really excited about it and happy to share it with you. And I hope, Robert, that you continue learning from the videos along with everyone else watching, and that you agree that they're only getting better, and that they're becoming highly shareable with your friends and your family to help them make sense of real estate as well. So we can continue to learn and grow together and get the channel to grow in size so that we can help more people make well-informed decisions. Darren Carter. Darren Carter says, you have 3 scores: credit card, auto, and mortgage. FHA required 3.5% down. So it sounds like, Darren, you had a traditional FHA loan product. Traditional FHA loan products are 3.5% down, so you're absolutely right. And yes, you do have 3 scores. And when you're talking about credit card, auto, and mortgage, it actually goes even further beyond that if you start breaking it down. And there's actually different score ratings based upon each of those. But I'm glad that you brought it up, because anybody without diving super deep into that, that is a very good rule of thumb, just to realize that you could have different scores based upon each of those qualification measures. So thank you for bringing that up, Darren. Then Darren says, what's your mortgage score and your income? So I'm not sure what you're referring to when you're talking about a mortgage score. Oh, okay, I got you. Sorry, Darren. You're talking about what's your mortgage score. You're referring back to Al May's comment about the credit score, and then like saying that at 630, and you're wondering if that's their mortgage score, right? So that's one of the reasons why Al would be best to talk to a local loan officer to review their unique situations with them, to see how it's going to play out once that loan officer has the opportunity to pull their credit score and review their situation with them. That's going to be what's most powerful for Al and what's going to work best for them. So let's go ahead and go back into the comments now that came in over the past week. Okay, where was I? Here we go. So Brazen Steel was watching Rent to Own Homes, Pros and Cons, and Brazen Steel says, very helpful, thank you. I'm so happy that that video helped you out, Brazen. Thank you for taking the time to comment and watch my channel. All right, Rachel Ole was watching Buying a House Solo, 6 Tips to Plan Now. Rachel says, thanks for all the info. Do you know any hidden truths about BMR properties? I've been trying to learn more about it, but I'm afraid there is something I don't know about it. Please help. Rachel, that's a very, very good point, and I'm super excited that you brought that up. For reference for everyone watching right now, when you're talking about a BMR property, you may or may not have these in your local area. This is something that's a lot bigger in like California and specific like San Francisco. So a BMR is a below market property, essentially an acronym. BMR is below market rate, and it's a specific program being offered by like San Francisco and their county for the different people that might have low income. There are a whole different set of variables that go into qualifying for it. And the best thing that you can do, I went ahead and pulled up the website. What you would want to do if you're in San Francisco and you're in that county and you're exploring the BMRs, you want to head over to a website, and I'm going to give it to you slowly so that you can spell it out, and then I'll put it in the timeline after the fact, so that if you're wondering what the eligibility requirements are and how this program works, then you'll be able to find the exact information of how to get started. That website is sfmohcd.org/homebuyer program eligibility. Again, I'll go ahead and put that in the show more description after the fact, so that it's available for anybody that might also be wondering about BMR properties. As far as if I'm aware of any hidden things about the program, to be honest, since it is something that's in San Francisco, I'm not an agent and I'm not a loan officer in San Francisco, then it's something that I would be remiss to give you too much of an insight on it, because I just don't know, to be honest with you, Rachel. All the same, I think that's a really good question, and I hope that that link will help you find the information that you need and get pointed in the right direction. At the end of the day, probably one of the best things that you could do is get on there and find a loan officer that's familiar with the program that can lay out exactly how it works for you, to figure that out for you and see if it's right. All right, Matt Nelson, and they can probably help boost your credit score. Okay, so that's a good point. Matt was talking about what Darren was talking about, which is a mortgage loan officer. If you need to boost your credit score, can probably help you do it. Yeah, a lot of mortgage loan officers have resources available to credit card specialist or credit specialist to repair your credit. I have some different people that I work with, and that's very helpful for as well. So Ty H, hi Andrew, Happy New Year. I was wondering if you could speak a little about PMI, MIP. I saw a couple of YouTube videos discussing how to avoid it with less than 20% down. Is that possible, and how? Ty H, and regular people talk, please. So Ty, that's awesome. That's a really good point. So these are conversations that you would ideally like to have with a local loan officer that you're chatting with about specific programs. Now, what I can share with you, like a PMI is a private mortgage insurance. PMI is what you generally see on a conventional loan. So a PMI, a private mortgage insurance, is something that's provided through the program to protect it in the case of default. So if somebody else defaults on it, that's how they recoup it and make sure that the loan program stays healthy and is okay moving forward. Now, what happens with a conventional loan is once you hit what's called a 20% loan to value ratio, then you lose your PMI on a conventional loan. So in regular people talk, what that would mean is that, let's use a really easy analogy here of a $100,000 home. If you put 5% down on that home, that means you'd have a $95,000 balance, or essentially a 5% loan to value ratio, because you put 5% down. Now, once you get that balance down to $80,000, you could drop your private mortgage insurance at that point with a conventional loan, right? So with the MIP, you mentioned MPI, but it's actually MIP, a mortgage insurance premium. That's something that goes on to an FHA loan for largely the same reasons that you have a PMI on a conventional loan. That being said, it's very important to note that with a mortgage insurance premium on an FHA loan, that doesn't drop for the life of the loan. So even if you were at 80% loan to value, meaning that you had paid that same $100,000 house down to that $80,000 balance, you're still going to owe an MIP with an FHA loan. So then the question becomes, how does one get out of an MIP? Well, you'd have to refinance the mortgage into a conventional loan product or sell the property. I mean, those are the realistic options. So when you're saying that you saw a couple of people on YouTube discussing how to avoid a PMI or an MIP with less than 20% down, there's such things called as like lender paid private mortgage insurance. So that's now going to be a whole different type of loan program. And you're going to be best to have that conversation with a local loan officer near you to see if it's something for you or not. That's the best thing. At the end of the day, I'm not a loan officer. I am a trusted real estate advisor. So I can't advise you to exactly what to do with your loans. And no loan officer is going to be able to do it either without pulling your information and getting your unique situation learned and how best to help you. That being said, Ty, it's going to be really, really wise, I think, if you reach out to a local loan officer and have that conversation with them, just to review your options and gain clarity on how any of those other programs will work. Because there's always a trade-off somewhere in all of this stuff that works. It's like nobody's going to give you, if somebody's going to drop a PMI or an MIP on a loan, right? Why are they going to do it? What's the catch? And what is that going to do to your monthly mortgage? Does that mean that you have to pay extra? Does it something that goes on to the overall balance of the loan? These are the questions you want to ask, and these are the things that you want to consider in determining if it's a good thing for you or not. Ultimately, the more information you can gather, Ty, the best and the most well-informed decision you'll be able to make. So please review your options. Okay, so the MIP does not reduce as you pay down the mortgage with FHA. So it could, right? So again, I would be remiss to say too much about how exactly that's going to work. In general, it's just going to stick with it. So is it going to reduce? That's not for me to say, to be honest with you. I wouldn't be completely certain on everything that's changing right now with the rules and how that stuff is going to work. But at the same time, I haven't heard of it reducing on an FHA. It does stick with it for the life, and a lot of people find themselves refinancing into a conventional mortgage later on to drop it and get out from underneath it or selling the property. Statistically speaking, the average American keeps a home for 10 to 12 years. So if you're looking at a 15 or 30-year mortgage, most people don't even come close to paying it off. The statistics are 10 to 12 years average time in a house before people move. So if you got an FHA for like your first home, well, statistics would suggest that you're probably moving in 10 to 12 years, and you would at that point be able to re-entertain any type of loan options that you have in the future, hopefully with the equity from the house that you had purchased, and you could have a 20% down payment or greater so that you didn't have a PMI on a conventional loan in the future. All the same, Ty, really wonderful questions and super excited you brought that up. Please review your options with the loan officer and let us know what you found out. So Darren Carter, anything less than 10 to 20% requires PMI. Am I correct here, Andrew? So that's a good point, Darren, and that's what we were just talking about. So when you're talking about anything less than 20% and you're referring again back to PMI, which is a private mortgage insurance, that's something that sticks on a conventional loan. FHA is a mortgage insurance premium. I know it can get a little bit confusing between the two. They both kind of accomplish the same thing, but they're both applied differently and they stay with the loan differently. FHA's MIP stays for the life. PMI can drop after you get 20% to loan to value, 20% of equity in your property, or essentially an 80% loan to value. So back to that $100,000 example, you owe $80,000, the house worth $100,000. Okay. At the end of the day, there is lender paid PMI. So that's what I'm saying for Ty's question. To answer it, Darren, the best thing to do is for her to talk with a local loan officer to review the situation with them to see what's best for them. I don't want to advise her about her loan since I'm not a loan officer. I just would suggest to have that conversation, and I hope that I've given a little bit of clarity and real people talk of what those are and how those work a little bit. John Y., if you're going for a 30-year conventional loan, 20% down, can you still qualify for a first-time homebuyer programs, down payment assistance programs, etc. in Illinois? So John Y., I actually know some really wonderful real estate agents in Chicago that I could put you in touch with that would be able to help better answer those questions for you, especially if there's any specific down payment assistance programs organic to Illinois. You said Illinois, the first place that comes up to mind to me is like Chicago. I don't even know if you're in Chicago. The agents that I know are generally in Chicago over there. That being said, John, you want to have that conversation with a local loan officer to see how that's going to work for you. And when you're talking about down payment assistance programs, if you had 20% down, the question that would kind of raise a flag in my mind's eye is, why would you be looking at down payment assistance? Honestly, down payment assistance has a pro and a con to it. It's a pro for people that don't have the money that they need for a down payment to be able to move forward with home ownership and buying a home, yes. The trade-off is the rate is always higher on a down payment assistance program. So if you, okay, it looks like we lost the stream there for a minute. So John, I was just saying, if you have 20% down, it's one of those things that you would probably just want to go forward with that, because you're going to get the better of the loan rates, and you're going to be able to have that 20% off the top. So that's going to drop the PMI in that case. So you'll be able to get a very good monthly mortgage amount because you're not going to have to contend with the PMI. John Wine, you say, yep, Chicago, great. Gloria Maitland over there might be an agent you want to reach out to. She's one of my favorite people as an agent. She just worked with another family that had contacted me about 1.5 years ago from the YouTube channel. I put them in touch with Gloria, and they just closed on their brand new home right before Christmas absolutely stunning home, absolutely wonderful, trusted real estate advisor that's honest and shoots straight with you over there that could educate you. And again, her name is Gloria Matlin. If it's helpful to you, just hit me up and off of my email in the show more description below, and I'm happy to make an introduction for you, John. When you say, okay, got it, kind of a dumb question, lots of laughs. Hey, lots of laughs, but there are no such things as a dumb question. Just know that, please. Just honestly, no, there is no such thing to me as a stupid question, because if you're thinking it, these are questions that need to be answered, and I respect the courage that you had, John, by asking the question that was on your mind. So thank you so much for bringing it up, and just know it's definitely not a stupid question, okay? Darren, hi, John, go Bears. And John, most people don't have 20% to put down, just being honest here. Okay, so Darren, thank you for the commentary inside of the commentary. That's always great to see with the engagement there. Okay, so we have Asan Raza that was watching how mortgage rate locks work, and Ashan says, I'm less than 30 days from closing, so I felt like a rate lock would not be necessary. I will report back when I close. So Ashan, thank you so much for watching the video, and thank you so much for taking the time to comment. Looking forward to the update that you give us, letting us know how it goes. As noted in yesterday's 2019 predictions video, the mortgage interest rates as of December were actually less, went down in the month of December than they were the previous month. So hopefully in your case, you got a really good rate. So let us know how that worked out for you. Stephanie Rivera was watching 5 housing trends impacting first-time home buyers. Stephanie says, hi Andrew, I'm a 21-year-old and I am currently in the closing process of my first home in Central California. I got my offer accepted for a 3-bedroom home priced at $235,000 with 20% down payment. I just want to let you know that Generation Z truly is listening. These resources have guided me so much and benefited me immensely every step of the way, so thank you so much. Stephanie, thank you so much for taking the time to share what's going on in your life. And first of all, congratulations on your new home. Super excited for you, and I'm absolutely stoked that you had saved up 20% down. You're going to get a really good shake. Obviously, no PMI, no MIP, so you're going to be having a good monthly mortgage rate there. And I'm super excited that you let me know Generation Z is listening. You know, the biggest demographic that watches my channel right now are millennials, and the next biggest generation is my generation. That's the elder generation to the millennials, right? So Gen X, right? Anyways, that being said, it's just amazing to see how people are using the content. I mean, it's available to everybody, yet it's millennials and Generation Z and my generation that are kind of really benefiting the most from it. And I'm really excited about it because as people become more educated about the real estate process, they make better and more well-informed decisions. As people do that, and enough of us do this, then guess what happens? Then we're able to help protect ourselves and protect our economy at large because we're being smarter about one of the things that drive the overall U.S. economy. There's a whole circle that feeds onto itself, and it all begins by simply getting an education, by simply making well-informed decisions, which is sometimes easier said than done if you don't know where to go, which is the purpose of this channel. So Stephanie, I am super stoked that you're talking about Gen Z and you being 21 years old. 2018, we saw the average age of a first-time homebuyer was 32. I really think that's going to be going down, especially with Gen Z accounting for 21% of the American population. We're definitely going to see what happens with Generation Z, and I am super excited that the videos are helping millennials, Gen X, and Generation Z, because Generation Z is the 3rd biggest demographic, and I'm wondering if they're going to, in the next few years, how that's going to play out with the millennials, if they're going to start balancing at some point. All the same, Stephanie, just wanted to spell that out and tell you thank you specifically for letting me know the age and everything and how the videos benefited you. Super excited for you and your new home, and definitely wishing you a lifetime full of love, wealth, abundance, and happiness in your new place. Ty H says, Gen Xer. Well, that makes 2 of us, Ty. I think that at this point, us Gen Xers, you know, it seems like it was just yesterday that we were the up-and-coming generation, and at this point, it's like, hey, I think we're starting to get a little old. just being honest with you, I was looking, when I was watching back that predictions video before I went live, I was noticing that the new camera is so good that it picks up on all my grays on the side of my hair here, and I was like, oh wow, I'm going to be salt and peppered here before long, but hey, you know, it happens, it's what happens, so whatever. That being said, I'm all the, it's just fun, you know. It's just, our generation, Gen X, has gone from a point of having no computers to, in the 90s, experiencing the advent, especially the late 90s, experiencing computers going into our homes, and then the cell phones. We can all remember back when they were actually bricks and bags with a cord with a phone sticking out of it, and then watching them get smaller and smaller and smaller, watching computers get smaller and smaller and smaller, and then even getting and then getting even less expensive. Whereas like computers back in the 90s might have been like $5,000 or $7,000. You can get them for like $500 or $600 now. So anyways, good observation, Ty. A little bit of reminiscent there, I guess, of our generation, and probably makes the younger generation that, what do you mean life before computers? But hey, you know, the computers are a good thing. I'm all for it. Information is power. So Nita Rand says, thank you for being here, Nina. Glad that you're here. Darren Carter said, what's the bracket for Generation Xers age-wise? So Generation X is generally considered those that were born from like 1981 to like 1994. There are some different schools of thought, because it does seem that generations, you know, how whoever makes these decisions are changing the numbers a little bit. So you got to be a little bit careful. But generally, Generation X is considered those born after like 1980, 1981, up to like 1994, 1995. Which is kind of interesting, because then you're like, where do millennials fit in if Generation Z is considered 1995 to 2010? And that's where we're getting the overlap. So it looks like those people that make those decisions need to let us know definitively what's going on. But normally, to better answer your question, Darren, age-wise, when it comes down to Generation X, would be, as of right now in 2019, are those that would be over the age of 34 to 35. So like 34 to 35 up to like, I don't know, 45, 47, that would be considered a Gen X. But it's a great question. I'm glad you brought that up. John Y says, how can I get the lender to waive some or all of their fees? By simply asking, what's my leverage? Okay, so John, that's a really good point, and that's a conversation you're going to have with a loan officer, to be honest with you. If you're saying, how can you get them to waive some or all of their fees are what enable them to be able to provide the loan. The lender has to get paid, so you're not going to probably get them to waive all of their fees. Just being real with you, anybody that can do something for free in our world would be out of business tomorrow. So just know that those fees are normally for a reason, and that's how they stay in business, so they can continue educating people and also be able to provide you with a home loan. Now, when you're talking about can they waive some or all or whatever, by simply asking, that's always what I say. You know, look, if you have a question that's on your mind, ask. You know, they could just say no, but by virtue of you asking, you stand a 50-50 shot of them saying a yes. So John, when you're wondering if they can waive some of the fees, just ask them, you know, hey, I noticed there's a doc fee here for my documents. Is that something that can be waived? Or, hey, I noticed that, you know, you charge me for a credit card pool. Is that something that could be waived whenever I close on my loan? They might just say, yeah, sure, we can do that. If you're asking them about the origination fee for the loan, that's what the lender, you know, or at least ways the lender's brokerage normally gets paid for originating the loan. And that goes back to, we're all in business. Real estate is business, so we have to be able to earn a living at the same time. If we said, oh yeah, you know what, go ahead and keep the origination fee, that means that we went hungry, and that means we're out of business tomorrow. Just keeping it real with you. So that's like if you walked into work and your boss said, hey, you know, we're glad you're here today, John, but we don't want you to get paid for the next year. I think that you say, see you later. So yeah, you're quite welcome, John. I hope that helps. Ty says, agreed, I'm 36. Hey, Ty, again, thanks for being here. And it sounds like we're both Gen X. You know, I'm getting ready to turn here 38 here shortly. 38, 39, crap. You know, whenever you get old enough that you forget how old you are, I think we got a problem. So I'm at that spot now where I'd have to look at a calendar and remember how old I am. I think I'm turning 38. I might be turning 39. I'm not sure. But either way, that's the general range. Anyways, let's go in with Almay. We already covered Almay early on. Homing Pigeon Racist was watching 8 things not to say when buying a house. Homing Pigeon Racist says, very true. I had a guy offer me $80,000 for my house. My asking price is $176,000. He will not get this house unless he pays every last cent now for offending me. So in that video, I was talking about the wisdom of making an offer and the approach with sellers. And if you're offering somebody half of what they're listed for or less than half, that's a pretty big problem. So, you know, in his case, that's a real world case of homing pigeon racists sharing their experience as a home seller, of them not even wanting to listen to anything that comes back from that buyer because of the ridiculous offer that was presented in the first case. Darren Carter says, I'm the old man here, 52. Darren, haven't you heard 52 is like the new 21? Just saying. There are some different schools of thought that say life doesn't begin until we turn 50. Check out Gary Vaynerchuk's channel and you'll listen to him say, and you'll hear people say, hey, you know, I didn't really start doing anything with my life like I do now. People think I've been doing it since I was 18. And Gary's like, oh, no, I really kind of started when I was 50. So, you know, it's one of those things that I figure out that at 52, you're right for becoming a successful entrepreneur, Darren, if you so desire to go for it with all the life experiences that you have. I just got my first house at 5200. That's not a problem. We all are at different places in our life, Darren. And all the same, it's an exciting time in your life that you were able to get your first home. Some people go through life without even ever buying a home. They just rent and they never have a retirement fund. They never have anything to lean back on that's theirs. So the fact that you got there, Darren, massive kudos to you, my friend, and massive kudos for you to stay true to the path that helped you get what you wanted at the end of the day. So, LaRon Hall, Happy New Year, Andrew, and everyone on live. LaRon, Happy New Year to you, my friend, and thank you for being here with us again today. Okay, we had Sophia Miles that watched For Sale by Owner. 6 costly mistakes to avoid. Sophia says, thank you for the helpful video. We would like to sell our house for sale by owner for 3 different reasons. The first one is we just sold our last house with a realtor 1.5 years ago and everything is very fresh in our minds, the steps, contract, and final process. Second, I felt like things were not done well. The pictures were not well taken. The address was wrong on the map. Contract was all about protecting the buyer and we felt like there was a lot of unanswered questions. Third, saving money. We paid $15,000 for the realtor that sold our house, and now we own a house that's 3 times more expensive. We would like to pay ourselves that since we are not in a hurry to sell the house. So, Sophia, I'm really glad that you brought that up and that you chimed in on it. So whether you end up pursuing the for sale by owner path or if you end up listing with a real estate agent at some point in the future, either way, I hope it works out for you guys. But I do want to key in on the 3 points that you mentioned because there's some things that you should know. The first one being that when you say that everything's still fresh in your mind with the steps, the contract, and the final process, those contracts are subject to change. And unless you have a really good familiarity with those contracts and how things maneuver in them, that might, going through it one time, 1.5 years ago, probably isn't going to be the best idea. And the reason that I share that with you is in reality, a person that gets their real estate license when they're new to the business probably needs a good 15 to 20 transactions under their belt before they start getting a good handle on those contracts. It's one thing to read them, it's another thing to understand them, and quite another to comprehend to be able to negotiate with them. That's just honest about the contracts. I'm not trying to discourage you. I'm just want to be honest with you. So the second thing that you felt like things weren't well done. So this I'm really concerned about. And what really concerns me with this, Sophia, is when you're talking about the pics weren't well taken, the address was wrong, contract was about protecting buyers or whatever, and you had a lot of unanswered questions. My biggest concern as a trusted real estate advisor, and this goes back to even some more specific videos that I've made on how to find the right agent for you, is that it sounds like that didn't happen there. Because you should always be looking at an agent's ratings, their reviews, and their past sales history. And whenever you're reading the reviews, getting an idea of who they are by what real families just like you have shared openly, and be able to make a well-informed decision and interview the agent. And if it's a fit, it's a fit. But whenever somebody gets ready to sell a property and they can't even bring in a professional photographer, that just pisses me off, frankly, as a trusted real estate advisor. Because you're right. You said in this case, you were paying $15,000 for real estate commissions. You know, that's a lot of money. It's worth a few $100s if that's what it takes to get professional photography to put your home in the best light possible, work with you to get it staged, work with you to get it right so that when it goes on the market, that the buyers are attracted to your house and it sells as quickly as possible for the best price possible, if that's what you're wanting to do. When you say the address was wrong on the map, well, that's, again, one of those things, those are basic things. So it really boils down to, underneath your second point, make sure that you're reviewing an agent's ratings, reviews, and testimonials. We're not all created the same, unfortunately, and different ones of us are like super geeky or super tech savvy, however you want to look at it, like super passionate and actually enjoy what we do, and it's not a job, it's just fun, and we like helping people because it's in our nature. So the ones that are very passionate about the business, those are the ones that are only going to be the best agents for you, and they'll have the best sales records and everything else, because we're not in it for the commission as much as we're in it for you. That being said, the commission comes after we do a good job for you. This goes back to like the saying, if you've ever heard it, where, you know, by helping people get what they want, you'll take care of yourself at the end of the day by first putting someone else's needs and wants first. So a good real estate agent gets that. Then you're going into the third, saving money. The statistics, and I put the link in the show more description below of that video, are not exactly there for that. Yeah, you would save in the real estate commissions, and at the end of the day, the statistics and the studies that are done and updated every single year from National Association of Realtors suggest that, or actually they find conclusively, that only 8% of for sale by owners that list their home themselves actually ever sell them. And for those that do sell them, they, for a like and kind of house, let's call it, I think in the report, in the study that was in that link, they said that the home would have sold for $240,000 with a real estate agent, but as a for sale owner, they got $180,000. That's a $60,000 spread. So that's pretty significant. Obviously, your home is priced much more. If you're talking about $45,000, because you're saying $15,000 for the realtor that sold your previous home, and now the home is worth 3 times more. So if that was a $45,000 commission off the top of my mind, that's like a $1.25 to $1.5 million property. So if you're talking about that, then, you know, I just really hope that things work out for you at the end of the day. And I definitely respect the fact, Sophia, that you took the time to share your thoughts with us openly and honestly. And I'm going to send you positive mojo that everything plays out the way that you guys would like at the end of the day. Okay, Ty H, as she should have. Happy wife, happy life. Okay, so I see what that's in response to. Bob the Destroyer says, hi, Andrew. I'm 36 and looking to buy my first home, and it's $144,000. And it's been on the market for over a year. I make about $66,000 a year. What advice would you give me about purchasing the home? Bob the Destroyer, thank you so much for bringing that up. Those are really wonderful questions, and I appreciate the context and the details that you gave me there, Bob. So if a home has been on the market for over a year, you got negotiation room. That's the first thing that comes in my mind is now putting my buyer agent cap on is, why has it been on the market for a year? What's the seller's motivation, if you can discern it? Is it overpriced or is it priced right? And if it is priced right, why hasn't it sold? Has it been in contract? If so, how many times has it been in the contract, and why did it fall out of contract? Was it an appraisal issue, an inspection issue, or some other issue, just simply buyers got cold feet and backed out early in the process? So any way around it, Bob, get with a great trusted real estate advisor near you and make an offer on that, but you might be able to pick up that property for, you know, 125, 130 thousand if the seller truly has a need to sell, because the longer a home sits on the market, the worse it gets. The longer a home is on the market, the worse and worse odds they have of selling that property. So negotiate. It's definitely in your favor if that's the right house for you guys. So Ty, whenever you talk about happy wife, happy life, by the way, I just picked up on it when I was going back to Bob the Destroyer. Whenever Darren says, thanks, Ty, my wife picked out the house, and the Ty chimes in, she should have happy wife, happy life. Got you. So now I got the joke. Thank you. A little bit slow on the uptake on that one, but we're all right. I'm watching these comments fly in and got confused, but thank you for that. That's hilarious. John Y, are closing costs and real estate attorney fees part of closing costs? Yes, they are. And they're part of closing costs for a buyer. They're buyer closing costs. So if you have a real estate attorney that you're in a real estate attorney state and you have buyer closing costs, typically buyer closing costs range between 2% and 4% of a sales price of a home. To take away all of that realtor speak, so let's put it into numbers for you. So if you're looking at a $300,000 house and you need the plan for about 2% to 4% of the price of the home for your buyer closing costs, that means that you should have anywhere between $6,000 being the 2% of the 300, or 4% being $12,000. So $6,000 to $12,000 saved up in total for your buyer closing costs. So the seller has what are called seller closing costs. Your real estate agent's commission, in all reality, in all possibilities, probably being paid for by the seller instead of you. too. It's one of those interesting customs that we have in the United States as far as how that works. So that's something to think about, but you will have your down payment, and unless you do a down payment assistance program, and you will have your buyer closing costs that you need to be prepared for. Generally 2 to 4% is average across the United States, subject to exactly what's going on with that property and the overall situation though. So you'll want to talk with maybe, John, you said you were in Chicago, so talk to Gloria and see how that's going to play out for you. Bob the Destroyer says, thanks, Matt. Hey, Bob the Destroyer, thank you for being here and appreciate your questions. LaRon Hall, hey, Andrew, I have a friend who wants to know, can you get a loan for a fixer-upper for some of the upgrades on one loan? Yes, there are loan programs available for that, LaRon, so thank you for bringing that up. They're like FHA 203K loans, there's 501Cs and Bs and all kinds of weird loans like that have all these numbers after them. The best thing for your friend to do, if that's something he's considering, is to chat with a local loan officer in his area and see how that's going to play out. And there's trade-offs. I mean, with any of these programs, there's trade-offs. There's going to be upsides, there's going to be downsides. It's a matter of getting the information together to help you make a well-informed decision. So have your friends sit down with a loan officer near you and have them review how those programs work so that they understand how it's going to play out for them in practice. Once they figure that out, then they can decide if it's the right type of loan for them. But essentially, by asking, are there specific loans for that? Yes, there's specific loans for that. Talk with a loan officer near you. You're welcome. Okay, so Darren Carter, LaRon, that's 2 different loans. Okay, Darren's chiming in, comments, which are always great. Then we get into where we got several different comments that came in off of the 2019 housing market predictions video that just came out yesterday morning at 9. So Bruce Edwards was the first one, and the first comment out on the video, he says, rolling my eyes at all the extra fluff. Jesus, get to the point. Bruce, I did. I really did. And it's in the timeline description below if you wanted to fast forward to the predictions part of it. It was 3 parts. You had 7 factors, 7 indicators, and 7 predictions without first giving you the insight into the factors and the indicators that influence the housing market. Then anything that I would have said for predictions would have been unsubstantiated. I'm not going to make a video that's unsubstantiated or unfounded. So all the same, I'm glad that you got the information from the video, and there was a lot of stuff that helped that video come to life. All the same, I hope that you learned something new from it and that you learned whether 2019 is the right year for you or not to be able to buy or sell a home, whatever your situation may be. All the same, thanks for making the comment. Miss Finance wrote next on the same video, 2019, will it crash? The housing market predictions. And Miss Finance says, great content. I appreciate the time that you spent compiling the research and data to support the information provided in this video. Miss Finance, I am super happy that you keyed in on that because, yes, I put in about a good 40 hours of research into that video, and my outline for that video was 11 solid pages. So there's a lot of content in that video, and I wanted to make sure it's as factual and as actual as possible because if I put out videos of that nature, just know I always do my homework, then figure out how best to lay it out as best as I can in my abilities in making a video to help people make sense of the real estate process, to help people make sense of where real estate looks like it's going. So then they know the realities of the market and they know what's going on so they know what they want to do. Okay, K Vargas or K Vargs. Hello, very informative channel. Does a mortgage commitment letter for a new construction mean I'm stuck with that particular bank, or can I switch banks after commitment has already been established? So it would depend on the type of commitment and whether you've signed with the loan officer. In short, K Vargs, normally up until the time that you go to contract, you can switch a lender before you get into that process if that's something that you wish to do. Generally, before you make an offer on a property, you're talking about new construction specific, so a little bit different. Normally, you want to know exactly who you're going to be working with about 30 days before your actual move-in date or the completion date of your new construction. So if you're before that time, K-Vargs, and it's something that you want to look at different opportunities that may be available to you, then please look at the opportunities and figure out what's going to be best for you. If you got a commitment letter in the form of what's called a loan pre-approval letter, that's a little bit different. That just means that you've been pre-approved for the home loan. And at that point, yes, if you wanted to interview different loan officers, you would still be able to do so. At the end of the day, I hope that you make a well-informed decision about the lender that you're working with and that everything plays out the way that you would like. And by the way, that's a wonderful question. So I'm glad that you brought it up, K Vargs. Okay, Tish R. Tish R says, great video. I enjoy learning new things on the first day of the new year in response to the 2019 Will It Crash episode. So thank you for that. Jeff Weibo had watched top 5 real estate scams. Don't get tricked. Jeff says, thanks for your service. Great tips. Jeff, thank you so much for checking out the channel and for taking the time to comment. Really appreciate you. Then we have the farmer's daughter that was watching 2019's video for the housing market predictions. And this one was probably one of the funner comments I saw come in based upon what was said. I'll explain why. The farmer's daughter says, there are a few cracks in his analysis of the market. Number one, while interest rates are historically low, the principal amount has ballooned. Houses used to cost $50,000 to $100,000. Number two, the CEOs of companies have borrowed money to buy back their stocks. Your company that you work for is broke. Number three, millennials are hoping to have their student loans forgiven because they cannot get them paid down. Number four, it's not Trump's fault. You're up to your eyeballs in debt, but they'll blame him. So the farmer's daughter, number one, on each of those points that you made, what I would like you to do, if you'd be so kind and you feel so inclined to do, is to substantiate your claim. Substantiate your position with factual data. Because every one of those things that you said doesn't make any sense in context of that video. But all the same, I appreciate you taking the time to comment on that video and to watch it. Hopefully, if you did, perhaps you learned something new. Okay, K Varg says, thank you, great channel. K Varg, you're very welcome. Thank you for joining us today. Eric says, same video, 2019 predictions. Eric says, if you look at the historic interest rate average, then you should also look at historic home prices at the same time. Typical realtor video. So Eric, thank you so much for taking the time to comment and share your thought process with us. So here's the deal. Historic interest rates have nothing to do with the price of tea in China, but the historic home prices. I can understand why it might seem like that's the case, but we have to also put the wage growth and the other factors that I mentioned inside that video into action again. So if you're wondering why I would have been talking about the historic interest rate, the highs, the lows, and where we've been, was for a very specific reason. To be able to best understand where the market's going, we must understand past performance. When we look at context, because so many people are getting into the real estate market, and with 2008's collapse so fresh in the mind's eye of most of us Americans, is a little bit important to give it appropriate historical context. So when we're talking about mortgage interest rates are getting too high, and in the video I shared with you, Freddie Mac was saying maybe as high as 5.1 by the end of the year for 2019. Of course, we're already seeing rates higher than that. That Freddie Mac rate is essentially like the prime directive rate before loan officers get a hold of it. So it's one of those things that really got to talk to a loan officer about. But when we look at the historical data, right, this is where it gets interesting. When you take the last 47 years of mortgage interest rates and you realize you're at an 8.2% average and we're well below that today, it provides context. Now, the other context was the historical low out of the 47-year average being a 3.55% or 3.35% back in 2009, deep in the belly of the collapse. So if people were thinking that was normal, it's not normal. It was done as an artificial measurement by the Fed to increase the flow of money from lenders to us, the consumers, to buy a home, to stimulate the economy, which when we talk about artificial controls in the market, there was a few of them that I talked about in that video and explained how that works. So I'm glad that you took the time, Eric, to make the comment. I wouldn't agree with you that it's a typical realtor video because I didn't try to sell you anything, and I don't care to sell you anything, to be quite honest with you. I care to educate you and help you make a well-informed decision. All the same, thank you for taking the time. We have Swishi Uchicha. I hope I didn't butcher your name too bad. Shisui, you know, got a part of me. I'm a little bit country, so hey, some of these names are tricky. But thank you so much for coming in, and sorry if I completely butchered your name. Not my intention whatsoever. Hello, Andrew. What do you think about buying just half of a duplex or a halfplex? I live in Texas and it's common here. Okay. So what do I think about that? Well, if it's right for you at the end of the day, that's what's most important. And the only one that can make the decision of what is best for them is you. So what are my thoughts about it? My thought is if it's something that makes sense to you in your life and you're accomplishing your goals in the process, then it's something to think about. And to consider your other options while you're at it, and consider buying a whole duplex or a halfplex or whatever. And maybe doing house hacking by renting out the other units if that's something you wish to do. All the same, it really comes down to why you're buying a property, and it comes down to gaining clarity about what's most important to you in your life and why that's something that you're considering. Once you get clarity on that, then you'll know if you're making the right decision that's best for you. All the same, really appreciate you being here today and asking that question. That is a wonderful question. And if you're saying it's common in Texas, then I'm sure anyone else watching in Texas now or later after this live stream will also be very curious to hear the answers to the questions, and going to be happy that you raised it. So thank you so much for that. Okay, Simple Green 808 commented on the 2019 predictions video. Simple Green says the stock market has risen beyond historical increases in the last 10 years due to quantitative easing by the Fed and low interest rates for so long. The market can't absorb a rate hike back up to the old historical norms because it has been extremely inflated. To say that we are below historical rates is irrelevant, as things have changed drastically because the Fed kept the rate so low for so long. The market will drop back to where it should be after a couple more small hikes, in my humble opinion. So Simple Green 808, thank you so much for sharing your insights and your opinions with us. If anybody out there is wondering what quantitative easing is, Wikipedia would define quantitative easing as also known as a large-scale asset purchase in an expansionary monetary policy whereby a central bank buys predetermined amounts of government bonds or other financial assets in order to stimulate, keyword, stimulate the economy and increase liquidity. So I'm glad that he put that out there, and to break it down, I'm sure all of us can remember back to when Bush Jr. was in office, and before his departure, we were experiencing a tanking economy, right? A lot of part of 2007, going into 2008, we were not doing so well as a U.S. economy. One of the things that you might remember is that thing called a TARP fund that oftentimes people peg Obama with the responsibility for, and it wasn't him. It was Bush Jr. that started that ball rolling, and it was already in the process of being legislated and signed into law well before Obama took office on January 20th. That being said, that TARP fund would be a perfect example of quantitative easing, where you have large injections of federal money into a marketplace to stimulate the economy. So anytime that you hear any politician, any person on the television talking about stimulating the economy, we're going to do a stimulus, we're going to give you money back, these aren't exactly good things. Because you're increasing the national deficit at in the process of doing that, and you're also creating more of an artificial control on the market. So the artificial control was to try to keep and stop the bleeding at the time, was the purpose behind the TARP. It was the purpose behind the bailout, as it became known later on. It was the purpose behind it was to try to stop the hemorrhaging, right? If you ask me my opinion, I say the bank should have just failed. If we're truly in a capitalistic society and they screwed up that bad, then they should have probably just failed. And if they would have failed, then we could have rebuilt from there, and maybe we would have seen home prices back to where they could have cost $2,000 to buy a home. But we, as an economy, also would have seen $100 become a lot of money again, as opposed to the incomes that we now enjoy. So there's always a trade-off on that. All the same, I was really excited that he brought up the term quantitative easing and brought up the point of it being stimulated. In his opinion, what was going on there. I think what we're seeing right now is the stabilization, to be honest with you, Simple Green, where we see it slowly going back, and that's why you're seeing the interest rates going up, is to try to find that balance again, to hit that stability point. Obviously, if you increase the rates too high all at one time, it's bad. If you drop the rates too fast all at one time, it's bad. So how do you do that? It's like a teeter-totter. You got to teeter-totter this out, and it's going to take time. And there's people far smarter than I that are economists that are in charge of this kind of stuff. So we'll see what happens here. But let us all keep our eye out on it. So I really appreciate you sharing your opinion with us, and I thought it was a great comment. All right, Laurent Hall says, wow, Andrew, I just watched the new video and it was great. The clarity of the sound in the picture is great, and the pop-ups are very good. I'm loving it. Great job. Can't wait to see the next one. Next one comes out tomorrow, and I'm glad that you're loving it, Laurent. That is kind of what you're going to see a lot of going into 2019 with the videos I've been working on and are now getting ready to start getting released. Denise Belt, I have been meaning to ask you about my home value rocketing according to Zillow. It is up by $25,000 when I closed in October. Does that mean anything at all? I know Zillow is usually way off. So Denise, that's actually a really good point. I'm glad that you brought it up. If you go on the Zillow's website and you start tinkering around in there about Zillow's self-reported estimates for property values and their Zestimates, as they call them, they'll let you know what the margin of error is in your actual location. They have gotten better over the years with their reducing the margin of error. All the same, there is a margin of error that exists. If you're saying, has it gone up by $25,000 since October? Since the economy is stabilizing, it would depend on what's going on in your hyper-local market. And I say that because where we see a lot of millennials and first-time homebuyers moving to right now is like the heartland of the United States, where they can buy homes that are less expensive, or even into like the Northwest and certain parts of Washington State that are smaller cities. That's why certain areas across the country are just booming all over the place, and they probably will boom even in 2019 as the rest of the country starts stabilizing. Then we've seen some marketplaces where they're starting to come back down and prices are getting a little bit less expensive, and consider those places your more expensive places, like on your east and west coast in most cases, because the properties have already risen in a value where they've gotten unsustainable and now it's teetering, right? But overall, we're looking for a stabilization point. All the same, Denise, it's really going to depend on your home appreciation since October. It's entirely possible, depending on the price of the home that you purchased. If you're talking about $25,000 on a $250,000 home, that's 10% appreciation in a matter of like 3 months. That's pretty nuts. But if you're talking like a $1 million house and you're talking about $25,000 appreciation, you're talking about 2.5% appreciation, then that makes a lot more sense. So it really depends on the price point of a home in relation to the amount of money that you shared with me that your home is appreciating according to Zillow. And it also depends on your hyperlocal marketplace. Now, if you want more information about that, obviously, since you have a home, then what you might want to do is talk to your trusted real estate advisor that you work with to buy it, and ask them what's going on with the market trends, and ask them if that would be a correct assessment if you're just curious about it. It's a really good question, and I'm super happy that you brought that up, Denise. Thank you. John Y. Does the attorney need to review the contract before I sign, or will he or she review the executed contract? John, that's a really good question, and I'm glad, again, that you brought that up as well. If you're going to be using an attorney and you have any questions about the contract that you're signing or anything that you're agreeing to, then you might as well review it with them up front before there's an executed contract and becomes legally binding between you and a seller. So ultimately, whatever you choose to do is whatever is going to give you peace of mind, clarity, and comfort moving forward. That's what it's about. So since you have an attorney, then you might as well ask them to review it if you have questions about it. And hopefully that'll help you make better sense of what you're doing and gain clarity on any questions that it might have been left outstanding for you. Great question, John. Really appreciate it. Cormac Butler was watching the 2019 predictions video, says, great video, just found the channel, binging your videos, keep up the fantastic work. Cormac, thank you so much for finding the channel and the props for that video. Super glad that you helped it, and thank you for sharing it around. Jillian Ovals was watching 3 ways to boost your credit score today. Jillian says, I got a zero balance letter from my collections company. Will that be enough? Thank you. Do I need to email the letter to the credit bureau? So Jillian, that's a really good observation and a very good question that you raised. Thank you, number one, for watching the video, and number two, for taking the time to comment. When you're saying that you got the zero balance letter from your collections company, yes, you want to send that off to the credit bureaus and you want to keep a copy of it. If you're looking at getting a home loan, you want to also give that information over to your local loan officer that you're working with so that they can best assist you moving forward with the process. And if there's anything else that's needed, maybe a deletion letter, then that's something that they can help you get as well. SG says, in response to watching the 2019 prediction video, says, no offense, thank you for taking the time to making a video, but my yada yada took forever to get to the points. Like I said, thank you. SG, thank you for watching the video. Glad that you got a lot out of it. Again, what I typically do on my videos is I make timelines. So with the timelines, they're minute marked, so you can go to any spot in the video you want. Just saying. So all of the information in the video built upon each other. And you have to lay the foundation. If you're going to make a prediction, you're going to make a trustworthy and credible prediction, then it has to be substantiated. So the first 2 segments of that video, being the 7 factors and the 7 indicators, were the substance and the credibility for the predictions. So all the same, thank you for watching the video. No offense taken, and I appreciate you sharing your thoughts with me. Scott Stankus watched the same video, and Scott says, house prices are going to plunge in the next 2 years. I can't wait. Scott, evidently you didn't watch the video, but thank you for sharing what you thought you needed to share with us. Go back and watch the video, please. Thanks. Matt Nelson watched the 2019 housing market predictions video, and he says, nice video. Matt, thank you for your continued support, my friends. Always great to see you. And I know that we're going a little bit longer in today's live stream. We're almost to the end here. At the same time, I know that you're normally listening to me while you're at work, and I just want to say thanks, Matt, for always being there and being so awesome. Faith Barbie watched the 2019 predictions video, and Faith says, all I can say is that I'll be buying a house with 20% down at a 15-year fixed rate mortgage with no more of my 25% take-home pay, as her debt to income ratios is what she's referring there. Keeping 3 years of mortgage payments in an emergency fund, I'm almost there. So Faith, you know what? Number one, good. That's like the most beautiful, ideal situation that anybody could ever hope to be in. I personally have not been in that position whenever I bought my first home. At the same time, I'm glad to hear that it's something that you've been working for. There's definitely different trade-offs depending on how long it takes one to accrue 20% down payment. If you were in a position that you could have bought with a 3.5% down mortgage in 2011, 2012, which we know to be the low of the market, you would have made up well more than 20% by now. Just saying. There's a trade-off, pros and cons of opportunity, cost of time in relation to what the end goal is. That being said, as it pertains to today, right now, with what you're sharing with me, I'm super excited for you, frankly. 15-year fixed rate mortgage is going to get you a lower interest rate. 20% down payment is going to drop any PMI. And if you're at 25% of your take-home pay, freaking rock on, Faith, because that means you're living well below your means, and it means that you're not house broke. So I'm happy for you, and I really appreciate you sharing that with us. Then I noticed that you commented again right after that comment on the same video that said the younger generation is stretched with student debt. Yeah, I mean, the observation in that video and the studies said that in 2007, estimated $500 billion of student loan debt was out there, yet in 2017, it skyrocketed to $1.4 trillion, so almost triple in 10 years' time. It is kind of scary. So I'm definitely hoping that it doesn't impact the younger generations. And all the same, when we're talking about that video, and I was underneath those points in that episode, like I said, you know, millennials are coming out of the woodwork to buy homes, and they accounted for as much as 65% of all first-time home buyers last year. Generation Z, as from earlier in this conversation today with Stephanie's comment, 21 years old, buying her first home, and a couple of Gen Zs in the chat section today. So obviously we know that it's not everyone's case. It is some people's case. And we also know that people are looking for a more creative workaround solution of how to balance everything out, which is the purpose of this channel, is simply to help you make a well-informed real estate decision and take and put into context everything that you should and think about ideally before buying or selling a home. That being said, we are at 1 hour, 6 minutes. So we are going to adjourn. We have made it through all the questions, unless there's anyone else that's going to drop on real quick. I want to thank you, number one, for being here today, and number two, for your continued support. And if you have any questions that arise after the fact, please feel free to leave them in the comment section below, and we'll address it live next week. And again, Robert Taylor, thank you so much for your generous donation today. Really appreciate it. Definitely will put it to good use for the good of the channel. Thank you so much. And in between now and next time, I'm wishing you and yours a lifetime full of love, wealth, abundance, and happiness. Enjoy an amazing day, and may your 2019 be bright.